What's the most inaccurate thing your child has ever been taught in school? My son's fourth grade teacher told his class that blood is blue inside the body and only turns red when it meets oxygen. Emma came home repeating this proudly, pointing at the veins on her wrist. I gently explained that isn't true. Blood is always red because of hemoglobin, it's just darker red in the veins. She looked puzzled, but Mrs. Harper showed us a whole slideshow, Dad. She even had diagrams from the science book. The next morning, I packed my hospital badge into my bag. I'm an ER nurse at Riverside General, and since I was scheduled for the evening shift, I emailed Mrs. Harper to ask if I could give a short talk during career day. She loved the idea. That afternoon, 30 kids stared up at me from desks covered in Pokemon binders and Roblox pencil cases. So, I hear you've been told blood is blue inside your body? I asked. The class nodded eagerly. Mrs. Harper smiled at her desk. I pulled out a sealed blood collection tube. Notice anything? This tube has no oxygen inside, but the blood stays. I held it up. Red. I showed them photos of sealed vials on my phone, still red. The kids leaned forward, fascinated. I pulled up current medical textbooks on my tablet. Mrs. Harper shifted uncomfortably in her chair. But our book says blue, one boy argued. I checked the publication date, 1998. Science updates quickly, I explained. We used to believe many things that turned out wrong. Mrs. Harper suddenly stood up. Well, thank you, Mr. Adams, but it's time for math now. I started packing up when a girl raised her hand. So, our book is wrong. Whispers spread through the room. Mrs. Harper's voice tightened. The curriculum says, I cut in, showing the updated state standards on my phone. It specifically says this myth should be corrected. She asked me into the hallway. Do you realize how hard it is to keep authority when parents undermine me? She hissed. Now the kids will doubt everything I say. I kept calm. Isn't questioning and critical thinking the whole point? She snapped. I've taught for 20 years. I'm not changing my lessons because some nurse thinks he knows better than the textbook. That night, Emma asked if she was in trouble because Mrs. Harper kept glaring at her. The next day, the teacher gave a pop quiz. What color is blood inside the body? Emma answered, red. She got it marked wrong, with a big F. I scheduled a meeting with Principal Green. I brought Emma's quiz, updated standards, and medical textbooks. The principal listened, then called in Mrs. Harper. Is what you're teaching correct? He asked. After a pause, she muttered, It's easier for children to understand this way. I couldn't hold back. My daughter is crying before school because she's punished for telling the truth. 2 weeks later, the school replaced their 1998 science books. Mrs. Harper was required to attend professional development on current standards. On Emma's next report card, the comment read, Excellent critical thinking skills. At the parent-teacher conference, Mrs. Harper didn't look me in the eye. And when I signed up to volunteer at the science fair, my name had been crossed out. To this day, Emma always asks me when she learns something new at school, Dad, is this really true, or just a Mrs. Harper truth? How far would you go for the one soul that never betrayed you? I came home one evening to find my Rottweiler, Max, curled up in the corner, trembling. His black fur was soaked with blood. At first I thought maybe he got caught on something outside until I saw the security footage. The neighbor's teenage son had lured him through a gap in the fence, holding out food with one hand and a baseball bat with the other. He swung over and over, laughing while Max yelped in pain. Watching that footage made my stomach turn. My hands shook so badly I almost broke the remote. Max wasn't just a dog. He was the only family I had left. After my wife Clara died of breast cancer last winter, Max had been my anchor. He lay beside her hospital bed every night, refusing to leave her side, as if he knew his presence gave her strength. When she took her last breath, his cry was the only sound in that silent room. So when the vet told me Max had internal bleeding that couldn't be stopped, and that we had to put him down, it broke me all over again. 3 days later, my house was empty, silent, and colder than it had ever been. The police shrugged. It's just a dog. That's what they said. Just a dog. I couldn't let it go. I spent nights digging into that kid's life, found out he wanted to be a surgeon, had applied to half a dozen medical schools. His parents bragged to everyone about his bright future, so I packaged the footage of him torturing Max and sent it, first to every admissions office he applied to, then to his wrestling coach who promptly cut him from the team. No scholarship, no golden ticket. His rich parents had just bought him a brand new Mustang to celebrate his acceptance letter. That celebration didn't last long. I uploaded the video to the neighborhood Facebook group. His mother begged me to take it down. His father threatened to sue. Instead, the country club they loved so much banned them. The girlfriend who volunteered at an animal shelter, she saw the footage, keyed his shiny new Mustang, and dumped him the same night. But I wasn't finished. I waited, patient, watched his world unravel piece by piece. Then, once he was on the edge of losing everything, I sent the video to his job at the local hospital where he worked as a volunteer. His dream of being a doctor? Gone. Forever. Last week, I walked into the gas station down the street to buy a bag of treats for the rescue puppy I adopted. And there he was, behind the counter in a wrinkled uniform, ringing me up. He wouldn't look me in the eye. But when he handed me my change, I saw it. That hollow stare. The look of a boy who once thought he owned the world, now shattered. And in that moment, I felt it. Not closure, not healing, but something sharper. Revenge. Fathers, what was the exact moment your world shattered? I'll never forget the day my son stopped calling me dad. Not daddy, not pops, just sir. At first, I laughed it off. Kids pick up weird things at school, right? But then it happened again. And again. Each time it felt less like a joke and more like a knife. One night, I asked my wife about it. She froze, stared down at the floor and whispered, maybe he picked it up somewhere. But the way her voice cracked, it made my stomach drop. So I started paying attention. And once I looked, I couldn't unsee it. The way she'd rushed to silent secret phone calls the second I walked into the room. How she practically sprinted to the mailbox every afternoon before I could get there. How she suddenly started taking our son to the Veterans Memorial, always saying it was just to honor the fallen. And then the old photo albums, pictures from a life I wasn't part of. Her wedding, a man in uniform. I confronted her one night. That's when the truth came out. Her hands trembled as she pulled a letter from her drawer. He was alive, 6 years as a prisoner of war, and now he was coming home. The photo attached was grainy, his face scarred, but those eyes, they were the same eyes I saw in my son every morning. The man I had unknowingly replaced wasn't gone. He was coming back, and he wanted his family. I had been there for everything, teaching him to ride a bike, wiping away tears after nightmares, clapping at every school play, carrying him on my shoulders when he was too tired to walk. I loved him like he was my blood, because to me, he was. But none of that mattered in court. His dog tags outweighed my adoption papers. The judge didn't even hesitate. Full custody. The day he left with his biological father, I stood in the driveway trying not to collapse. My son looked back at me, eyes full of confusion, clutching the stuffed bear I'd given him years ago. My wife, she couldn't even look at me. Now every weekend, my boy still runs to my car when I come to pick him up. He still whispers dad when his other father isn't around, and I hold on to that like my life depends on it. They say blood is thicker than water, but I know better. Love, real love, is stronger than any DNA test they can throw at me. What do you do when the person you love asks for a break? The week you plan to propose. That's what happened to me. She sat across the table, serious face, hands twisting the necklace I bought her, and said she needed space. I just smiled and told her, take all the time you need. What Emma didn't know was that a ring was hidden in my closet, a vintage sapphire I saved 3 months for. I had already talked to her mom over coffee, booked a rooftop restaurant for our anniversary, even rehearsed my speech in the car like an idiot. She probably expected me to break down, beg, cry. Instead, I calmly folded her clothes into her overnight bag while she kept sneaking glances, waiting for me to fall apart. The next morning, I returned the ring. The jeweler gave me a sad little nod, slid $2,200 back into my account, and that was that. Then I did something insane. I booked a one-way ticket to Barcelona. I'd always dreamed of living abroad, teaching English, learning Spanish, but Emma called it running away from responsibilities. She wanted a mortgage, 2 kids, and the same neighborhood forever. 2 weeks later, I was standing in Plaza de Catalunya with 1 suitcase and broken Spanish. I rented a cramped apartment with peeling walls, took a teaching job at a tiny academy, and started learning the language through apps and late-night conversations with strangers. For the first time in years, life felt unpredictable, messy, and alive. Meanwhile, my buddy Mark sent me updates. Emma was posting her healing era online. Cocktail bars every weekend, new dresses, captions about self-love. Apparently, she kept asking if I was really gone for good, shocked I'd actually left. By month 3, my Spanish was good enough to talk without panicking. That's when I met Sophia at a language exchange in a cafe tucked in a side street near Elborn. She studied art history, spoke fluent English, and had this laugh that made the entire room lighter. We started meeting twice a week to practice, but really we were just falling in love. One morning, over churros and cheap coffee, my phone blew up. I made a mistake, please come home. Then, I saw Mark's story. Are you seriously teaching kids in Spain? This is ridiculous. And another, answer me. We need to fix this. You can't ignore me forever. I showed Sophia the messages. She raised an eyebrow, then smirked. Tell her you found someone who doesn't need space to know what she wants. Then she stole one of my churros and laughed so hard I nearly spit out my coffee. So I texted back, I found someone who doesn't need breaks to figure out her feelings. Hope you eventually find what you're looking for. Emma's reply came instantly. Spain was always stupid. You're throwing your life away for a fantasy that won't last. I handed Sophia my phone. She just smiled and whispered, should we tell her about our engagement party? We laughed so hard the waiter gave us the strangest look. So I texted back. I found someone who doesn't need breaks to figure out her feelings. Hope you eventually find what you're looking for. Emma's reply came instantly. Spain was always stupid. You're throwing your life away for a fantasy that won't last? I handed Sophia my phone. She just smiled and whispered, should we tell her about our engagement party? We laughed so hard the waiter gave us the strangest look. Subscribe for Daily Tales by Anissa.